Welcome to our lectures on the ACCA Business and Technology paper. Until late 2020, this paper was known as the Accountant in Business. The change of name did not cause any change in the syllabus content, so if you happen to be dealing with or using older books still called Accountant in Business, provided they're 2018, 2019, those should be fine. Although the name changed to Business and Technology, there's very little in the syllabus dealing with technology. The paper is much more an introduction to almost a wide variety of terminology that you'll come across in business, and therefore is a very good foundation for the rest of your studies. Let's just see what the main areas of the syllabus are. First of all, we talk about the business organization, and there are different types of organization. You can have one person trading on his own or her own. You can have partnerships, a number of people trading together. You can have limited companies, which provide the owners of the company with some degree of protection and security if the company goes into difficulties. There are stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people who are in some way affected by a business. Obviously it's owners, obviously it's employees, but also customers, suppliers, and even the local population who are living perhaps near to a factory are going to be affected by traffic and pollution and so on. They all have a kind of stake in the business, they're all affected by the business. They may not have very much power there, but nevertheless, in many cases, their views and the effect of the business on them should be taken into account. And then we have the external environment. This tends to be dealing, first of all, with what you call the macro environment, the big things in life, the political situation, economics, technological development, and so on. All businesses are to some extent affected by these really global international effects to some extent. They will go down in to look at the particular business environment, which is primarily to do with the nature of competition. Are you in a very competitive organization or business where it's keen competition, very difficult to raise your prices? Are some of the competitors very large and who can beat you in research and development and so on? There's the structure of the business, the old type of structure, I suppose, tended to have many layers of people, many different seniority, different ranks, if you like. Huge difference between the people at the top and the people at the bottom. Nowadays, many businesses have moved away from that tall, narrow structure to what's called a wider, flatter structure. Because if the environment is changing rapidly, for example, rapid IT changes, then it's very important that the business can move quickly enough to catch up with its competitors. And if you have a huge number of different ranks, if you like, the communication between the top and the bottom and the bottom and the top of the business can be too slow. The different functions in a business. Typically, businesses are broken up into the finance and accounting, sales and marketing, production, human resources, and this is a convenient way very often in which to organize the functions of your business so you get a degree of expertise within each of these departments. And then governance. Governance is how companies are run and managed. The difficulty with businesses is once they get large, there tends to be a separation between the people who own the business, the shareholders, for example, and the people who day-to-day run the business, which is a board of directors. If you take companies listed on the stock exchange, the vast majority of shareholders have no day-to-day involvement with the running of the company. And this leaves open the possibility of bad governance, abuse by directors who have the day-to-day power, perhaps awarding themselves extravagant bonuses or first-class air travel all the time, looking after themselves rather than what they should be doing, looking after the owners of the business. There are accounting and reporting systems. It's very, very important that managers know factual information about the business. What were last week's sales? What are this week's costs? What profit have we made in this month? How many items of inventory do we have? What inventory needs to be reordered? If you don't have this factual information, there is no way in which you can sensibly run a business in a proper, efficient way. And the way accounting systems and reporting systems are set up is very, very important to the success or otherwise of a business. Going hand in hand with that is the subject of internal control. How do we know that we are recording amounts properly? How do we know that some inventory, some stock isn't leaving the factory and not being properly recorded, so that the person buying that inventory is never going to be invoiced? How do we know that employees' claims for overtime are fair, that they really did work that amount of extra hours? How do we know if we get an invoice from a supplier, how do we know that we've paid that invoice and we don't inadvertently pay it twice? So proper systems of internal control, kind of internal checks, various methodologies are terribly important to make sure that the business is again run in a sound, efficient way, and that information management is getting is reasonably accurate. Very important then is leading and managing individuals and teams, basically employees. Employees are an immensely important resource, and they are the only asset of a business which might decide not to come back. Large pieces of machinery, if you close down business at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday, are likely still to be there at 9 o'clock on the Thursday. Whereas an employee, if they get fed up, if they think there's no future, if they get a better offer from a competitor, may simply say to you on Friday, by the way, I have a new job, I won't be coming back on Monday. And even if they do come back on Monday, they have to be what's known as motivated. They have to be keen, fired up, enthusiastic. Because if somebody is, as an employee, kind of depressed a bit about their job, thinking it's going nowhere, thinking they've been treated unfairly, they are not going to be working as hard and as well as they might otherwise do. Personal effectiveness and communication. For example, one of the reasons we like going to work is that we learn. We learn from watching people. We learn by experience. We learn by going in courses. We learn how to manage our own time, to prioritize tasks. We learn how to maybe give criticism. We learn how to perhaps give orders and to give criticism to people. And the way that this is communicated to people, choosing whether or not you're going to have a quiet word with someone about the standard of their work, or whether you're going to send them a very formal, perhaps slightly officious letter, can make all the difference between whether that intervention is successful or not. And then professional ethics and accounting in business. Professional ethics is talking about professionals, particularly accountants, doing the right thing. You see exactly what they are, but for example, honesty is terribly important. We would call it probably integrity, not just being honest, but sticking up for your beliefs. If you think a piece of accounting is incorrect, don't suddenly say, okay, you want to do it differently, and then kind of give up at that point. If, for example, accountants do not exercise integrity, are not honest, are influenced by outside factors, in a way, what is the point of an accountant? What is the value of a professional qualification if people can't look to you and say, this person has said yes, therefore it must be okay, this person really thinks it's okay to go ahead with this transaction or this way of recording transactions. But if they say no, then really we need to listen to this person. If they haven't got that kind of belief in your integrity, your objectivity, if they don't believe that you're going to hold information confidentially, then in a way you're almost wasting your time and you're undermining the profession. So wide-ranging syllabus, but as I say, not particularly deep. That kind of comes later in more specialist papers. Finally, a very brief word about the nature of the exam. It is what's called an objective test exam. Some of these are given 4 alternatives, A, B, C, D. You have to choose one you think is right. But it also involves more complex types of questions. You're given 6 alternatives and asked to choose the 2 which are right. You could be asked to put something in a particular order of importance, maybe, or kind of sequence in which you might do something. You could be asked to match up terms and their definitions. It's well worth going to the ACCA's website. If you go to the kind of student section there, and you go to the business and technology part of that, you'll be able to see a typical exam and see the variety and style of questions which come up. It's a 2-hour exam. The pass mark is 50%. Section A has 46 102 mark objective test questions, 76 marks in total. And Section B contains 6 4-mark multitask questions, and each of the 6 questions will be concentrating on one of these 6 syllabus sections, so that each one is properly examined. In the exam you can move forward, you can move back, you can skip a question and go back to it, you can do a question, go back and change your mind and so on. It's a very, very flexible system, but you really do need to practice, if you like, how to drive the exam mechanism so that you're not kind of held up by that in the real exam.